Welcome to the Solid Signal podcast for the week of April 14th, 2014. If you've been to the Solid Signal blog, blog.solidsignal.com, in the last week you've no doubt noticed that we've redesigned the blog to make it more tap-friendly. We've discovered that more than half of the people who visit our blog for the first time, in fact about 2/3 of the people who visit our blog for the first time, are doing so on mobile. And we want to retain a few more of those folks who come for the first time. I want them to feel comfortable and enjoy what they're reading. So we've gone to a more mobile-friendly format. That means spacing things out, making type a little bit larger, making it easier to tap. Folks, I understand it's a little less information dense, and personally maybe I'd have liked that, but this is the world we live in. Take a look at any of the technology blogs and you'll find they're all doing the same thing. So I feel really good about this, and I'm excited about the comments that I've been getting about our redesign. I hope if you haven't seen it that you'll check it out. If you've been listening to this podcast for any amount of time, you've probably figured out that I'm no spring chicken. In fact, I don't think anybody's a spring chicken anymore. I don't even know what that means. More to the point, I'm not 22 anymore. And that means when I grew up, it was the 1980s. Now, this isn't going to be one of those podcasts where I say, well, when I was a child, we didn't have blah, 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 blah. But it is true. If you think about it, back in the 1980s, you could get a fairly decent apartment for $400 a month in most of the country. And today, most of us pay $400 a month just for the combination of our satellite TV, our internet, and our cell phone data plans. Of course, we're all making a lot more money, too, which is another whole thing to think about. But more to the point, if you look at the percentage, the amount of money that we spent back in 1984 for information compared to today, well, I suppose you'd have to pitch in, well, about $20 a month for cable TV and maybe $5 a month for newspapers, maybe another $5 a month for magazine subscriptions. $30 a month was maybe about 5% of what the average person was making back in 1984. Today, when we pay $300 to $400 a month for our information, we're really paying a much higher percentage. We think of the internet as free, as it taking the place of things we pay for like magazines and newspapers, but the truth is we pay more for entertainment than we ever have before. Somehow the future has gotten a lot more expensive, even if you factor in that back then, telephone service was about $35 a month, and that didn't include long distance. So our communication budget was maybe $60 a month. That's still a smaller percentage of what we paid back then. And, I don't think that's going in the right direction. All this data, all these fancy computers in our pockets and in our purses cost money. Costs money to put it up, and especially when you're talking about cell technologies, you're only going to get about 2-3 years out of a technology before it becomes obsolete, so it's got to pay for itself right then. So I'm sensitive to cell carriers, for example, who want to charge a lot of money for that sort of stuff. But it's expensive. And while there was a movement afoot at one time to give cities free Wi-Fi, for example, it seems to have stalled, as I mentioned in a blog post that I made last week. Maybe it's time that we thought about internet service the same way that our forefathers and foremothers thought about libraries and concert halls in the early 20th century, something that enhances the culture of a city or town and makes it better for all the residents. Maybe that includes offering internet service at a fairer price, something that is a lower percentage of what the average person makes. I don't know how that would be done, and this really isn't the right place for politics, but if we start by thinking that way, if we start by thinking how important internet service is to everyone, then with the great minds that we have in this country, I know we'll find a way to make it work and make it profitable for everybody. So enough of a soapbox for this week. It's been a great time making this podcast. We'll be back next week with even more fun and games, as it were. If you've got an idea for a future podcast, I would love to hear from you. Click that orange Suggest a Topic button at the newly redesigned Solid Signal blog, blog.solidsignal.com. And as always, have a great week.